Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the first of the two KVDS Talks this year. The D Talk is envisioned as a series of short presentations by the panelists on their own way, aimed at opening up conversations on the aspects of various modes of practice, followed by an open discussion. Today we have with us three eminent design practitioners: Samuel Barclay from Mumbai, Rizvi Hassan from Bangladesh, and Palinda Kannagara from Sri Lanka. They will be talking about the various processes that guide their practice and how these have evolved over the years as a response to the wide social and cultural context in which design is practiced. The intent is to get to know the relationship between the philosophy of their architectural practice and the design process that they employ in their project. We also aim to inquire the tools or methods they use to achieve their vision. First, we have with us Rizvi. Since the beginning of his practice, he has been exploring various roles of a design professional in unconventional fields. Observation, materiality, environment, and learning from each other have been the key in his design process that tries to reflect on the construction and spaces as well. Among his recent works, Rohingya Cultural Memory Center, Health Facility for Kannagara, Hindu Para Community Center, Safe Space for Women and Girls, Healthcare Community Center, etc. are notable. They also have been recognized by the Guardian in 2020 and Agha Trust for Culture in 2022. We invite you to come and present.
Hello. Thank you. Good evening. Uh, so I came to Ahmed about today for study, and I'm staying in a very nice place. That is faculty architect in their home, and the family is standing there. They're having the puja, and I'm getting to see that firsthand and the food. Uh, and I have met some outstanding students. Uh, So I think it's a very good environment to be in. And I went to be interested yesterday and went to the old city and took photos from that. Uh, so I really didn't have much plan to that what I'm looking and in the project that I need to visit. I went to the old city. alternative, and connected way, and his approach really taught me a lot. So everyone you're seeing here, no one is an architect. So there is a mayor of the Geneva in the middle, but the background visualization you see that was done by us with a long process. With some workshops and everything. So they knew that we were trying to plan for the city. They got aware, they got the information from us, but later they got so excited that they started discussing about these projects. And many of those projects are being built right now. One of the projects from Zumeda is also another Hassan. And after this journey in Schneider, I went to the camp that yeah, I think that many of you will be aware that the influx really happened in 2017, and almost a million Rohingya refugees they came fled from Burma, Myanmar, crossed the North River and came to our country. So our government decided to open the door for them and open up this land. These were forests before, and then the situation got like this. And when I went there, I got to meet a lot of other professionals. A lot of cases who were energetic, who were very positive, very simple-minded, and just wanted to do good. So I got to know them, the artisans, the craftsmen, and their colleagues as well, family, family. So it was like a lot of things going on. We are in the middle of a crowd. And as I said, as I mentioned before, first just try to be friends with them, and then we started showing some skills of us like this. They stupid series and and that simple model that we made, and things for the whole good work. So many things happened and many things didn't. A lot of failures happened as well. But we kept going on and keep exploring. The photo you are looking at here, this was the type of project they actually called us for. So it was probably already designed and they just wanted some drawings in AutoCAD, and they called, can you support us with the technical drawings? And we went to the site and saw that already many constructions are going on. And but we tried to stay positive, and we started with this sort of project and keep developing to new ideas and further scopes. So in this context, architecture has been a very useful tool for us. So sometimes to connect, sometimes to build trust, to be helpful, and for so many other reasons. So we really got rid of our biasness to really have to, that we have to design something and build something, but we used this scope as connecting to other professionals and other friends. So it has been a tool for us to address peace and conflict. We have been hearing this issue from the beginning, that the peace and conflict issue between the host community and the refugee community is a severe thing. And all the organizations who are working there, so they try to reduce it or mitigate it somehow. And when we got to know these sectors who are working there, it is done from the gender-based violence team. So we immediately started discussing what can we do to mitigate these conflicts. Uh, so you can see the map here, and our project is right there. So this place, yeah. So this area, it's a very merged context. This is actually the host communities, and in every backyard of the host community, there is like shelter where refugees were given the shelters. So it was a very complicated issue going on. There were many issues between the host people and the refugee people, many conflicts going on. And BRAC, they decided to make a space where they can consult on this and a safe space especially for the women and children where they can come and they can share what they're going through and maybe it can be a place for friendship. So we designed a very basic thing with an interior core because the refugees there have been very conservative and they just needed privacy. So we had this something that you really cannot see from outside, or you feel like it's a very blunt thing, but inside there is some color and some private spaces where women can share with the organizations. And after the inauguration, they started using the space. It has been a very there has been some flexible spaces where children can come use the space as much as want. At the courtyard, it hosts their playing. Sometimes it becomes a garden, and and the main members from the community, they were also excited during the construction because it is something that you don't build every time, every day. And when they saw that something different is going on, they came to us and said, "Please hire me in this building." And we said, "It's not for male; it's for female." They said, "Okay, maybe my wife or daughter they can participate in here." And we agreed, and they started coming. And after the monsoon, the face changes, and sometimes it looks like this. And this is another project. It is also for the hosting community and the refugee communities. It is a community center for the Hindu camp. There is just one camp in the whole area. It hosts like 1,000 families. So the Hindu refugees, they are the minorities among the minorities there. And we had to work on some solution where they can come to a platform, in a phone platform, and try to build this understanding. You can see this is this dense area, that is the camp, and this is the host area. So at the beginning, we planned to build some space inside the camp, but because they were so vulnerable, they really didn't trust us immediately, and they almost said that you were trying to break our temple and everything. So we had to act on that, and we said, okay, maybe we don't have to build in here, but we can find some place nearby where it can host actually both. And we found the host land. This person, he agreed to lend the land, and we build a space here so that this community can access to this area and they can also both can share. And this was the place, the first time we went there, it was a chicken shed. It was an abandoned one, and we converted it to something like this. So about this project, by this time we had so many conversations with many organizations, and they have been saying that since this context is so unpredictable, they need some building solution that can be moved from one place to another, maybe a modular solution. They were not specific about it, but they said there's a lot of wastage going on in their constructions because sometimes the government officials come and they said your building cannot be here anymore, so you have to move, and that needs to be completely started. So in this building, we designed everything modular that can be plugged in, and if they need to shift, they can shift. And of course, the colorful mattresses, it was just a reflection from the local saris they wear. Uh, and you see the patterns on the floor, which we really try to build the components in a way when the craftsmen or the users can come and put these things into their own hand and feel connected to the whole process. So these are the craftsmen they were doing. At the beginning, when we just gave them the idea that you have to, can you make a pattern out of these broken tiles? So they were very angry and they didn't really want to. But when we started putting these things and making like a flower, they got excited and everyone was rushing to like making the pattern. So these sort of decisions make the whole process some connecting, inclusive. And those are the panels that is easily installable and removable. And we really try to arrange workshops after the construction and before the construction if we can. Not that we can do it in every construction, but whenever we can, so that they get introduced to the place and they can paint and make a mess. So this is the plan. Nothing to discuss about. And so it's a similar thing or similar way. We built some other structures for the host villages as well, Bangladeshi villages. So they also took it very positively. This is being used for many generators things and counseling meetings or even functions or like a marriage ceremony or many things. So architecture has been a very good tool to build trust for the clients and for us. This is one project. This is a renovation and extension project that we did for the Bangladesh government. This office was actually operating the whole camp operation. So their building was very much old and they needed some extra spaces. So they requested us to renovate, and we did it very quickly, like 3 months, design and build and everything. But we had to do it quickly because it's an emergency situation, and we have to think fast. And again, some solutions for particle extensions in the camp. These are also modular, and this is a composition. This is a composite structure. Like the industrial materials are there, the local materials are there. So we actually try to explore a lot for us as well because we are young and we didn't really much have idea, and we try to learn from this works. And sometimes we do projects where we stay, like in Boxing Bazaar. The owner of this house, he drives a car, and we went to him and said, "I want to rent this place," and we converted it, and now we're using it at our studio. Architecture has been also a tool to address mental health, to enhance culture, and reconnect lost identity. So this is one project I'll talk about. It's Rohingya Culture and Memory Center. So we're looking at it like healing through making. This project has been a process of 1.5 years. 1 year was just to understand and to connect them and to know who they are, what they can do. And then the next 6 months, we build this in a collaborative process. So that is the camp, and you see the project in the middle. So immediately we started connecting with the local key leaders, the female community members or male members, and what they can do and what is the reaction about it. We have to understand from close observation. And we arranged some it will be fantastic to say, but a design studio in the camp. So, so yeah, we explored the same way we explored in our university, and we gave them idea, they gave us idea, and we tried to say, okay, can we make something very strange or very interesting, and they responded very beautifully, and they keep making what are their cultural objects. And these are the drawings out of the studio sessions. Like it's a panel that is foldable, and it's a whole facade that can be converted to the tables. And these were not some ideas that we gave them. We just asked them what is the strangest thing you can think of, what is the loveliest thing you can think of, and they came up with this. Um, and we didn't ask for models, so it would be a luxury, but one artisan, he was so excited and he made this with so much detail, and I think I cannot make such model. So yeah, we also arrange workshops with children. What goes on in their mind? What are the stories they know about? And that gives a lot of essence about who they really are. Uh, so it's a very weird story I can share, but yeah, we got to know them and their background. Yeah. So we also arrange some fun workshops for the seniors. Why should children have all the fun? And they do this collaborative planning, like imagination sketches and these sort of things. So everyone feels very connected to build one thing together. I think it's a human art or natural art to build your own environment. And when you ask them to do so, they feel excited and they immediately come and say, "Okay, I want to paint, I want to draw, I want to collaborate." And from these sessions, we found out many cultural things and many traditional way of building. This is Nipapam palette. The Rohingyas almost 90% housing was the roof was made by this palette. So it is now not very common in Cox's Bazar, but we had to source the material and we got it, and we again we arranged a workshop where the elderly can teach the new who doesn't know the technique. So yeah. So there's a sharing session. Everyone is learning from each other and building the techniques. And then later the roof was built with these materials. Uh, yeah, we also make very simple models like this. And that photo, that sketch, it was done by one of the artisans. Um, I really couldn't recall that I really derived the idea from here to here. But subconsciously, I think that layout was in my mind to design such things. You see the central core. He mentioned of the very peaceful place where he wants to go and sit and memorize or think of his past. So it's a central core, and there are layers and there are stairs. And somehow, when we designed, and afterwards we thought of the methodology again, and we saw that there is some relevance because it was in our subconscious mind when we had this work. And later, these were the outcome. These results. And these are the head craftsmen who really led this creative process, and they went super experimental and crazy about new ideas. So they're experimenting the facade that was built for this construction. We just gave them the idea of the philosophy that this can be well ventilated, this has to be strong, and they experimented some of the options, and we picked one. They're installing it. And later, yeah, this sort of screen was built. And you see they're enjoying the music because I forgot to mention this project is under mental health department from IOM UN. And our specific need from this project was to whatever the thing I built, the process has to be in a way that it benefits the mental well-being. So during the construction, we arranged some fun activities so that they can really open up. So these are all the laborers or craftsmen or artisans from various camps, and all of a sudden there was a session. And everyone showed their skills. Someone made this smart ball, and one of the studio session we take is that we get them aside like 2 feet by 1 feet, and think of the best memory you have, and somehow convert it to a window, or translate to a window or panels. And 20 artisans work on this, and they came up with these windows from their home. So each and every panel has some story to tell. Like these has stairs, it's a multi-story thing. It opens up to a new window and everything. So these are the installation later done. And this is Rizvi. I couldn't stop him from making these styles. So he was super excited about exploring in a new way, and he said, okay, that can be can have patterns. We also discussed about their dust and everything, but since again their mental well-being and happiness is much more important, we allowed a lot of things. So the floor looks like this right now, and there's this storyboard and everything. So you see, nothing real here is the workmanship is not really 100% perfect, but you see a lot of patterns and a lot of human touch and collaboration. That is more important for us. That if a person, if he has the capacity, if you can like score him 15 out of 100, he should be joining our team, and we work together. And at the end of the day, he should be like 20 out of 100 or 25 out of 100, so that he or she develops. Not that he has to be the most fine worker and give us the finest product. We don't look for that. We look for the better development. Yeah, then the place got a bit serene, and it is well ventilated and comfortable. So they come here often and discuss and share stories. And right now, it is also being visited by Bangladesh government, some officials from different countries, and everything. So the idea is the identity of Rohingya people has to be preserved. That they are not Bangladeshi people. They have their own identity, and people should know. People should come here and know that they have their individuality. The histories are there, where they come from, it's all there. So anyone who is visiting, they will have the idea of knowing. Sometimes we just don't look for a product. No building, no space, nothing. But just to kickstart a vision. I was mentioning maybe you can teach, you can have the workshop and everything. So this was a project, a big team. Fatmi, she arranged this workshop actually. So that is these are all young architects, and they often get excited and come work with us. Uh, so this project was about the wash facilities of a village in Teknak area, and we specifically had to think of the planning of that area. What can be the future way of developing? And we observed that there's lack of water scarcity, and some farms were producing soap water. So what we did was we immediately sat with the community and tried to understand what is the need and what can be the solutions. And we planned the whole area together. When we started planning, mapping the whole area, many possibilities came to us, and that okay, this can be done for this simple solution. Uh, and and later we present this to very different government officials, and some of them are very positive and say, okay, I'll try to manage fund and do this for the community. And that's how future vision starts. Not necessarily we have to be anything like it. And you see, these two photos are from the same workshop, and it was very we're very surprised to see the similarity. Like everyone has the child inside them, and they're just doing the same thing, the same minute, and that accepts that because no one is the architect here, and uh, everyone is need to be responsible. Everyone needs to be responsible. That is the target. Make friendship and be resilient together. This is a project, very small project that we just did last month. It was the first week of August. It is for Institute of Architects in Bangladesh. So after the recent floods in Sylhet area, we decided that we want to make friendship with this community to better understand what can be the solution, what can be the future needs, and how can we be resilient together to these flood responses. So we arranged a 1 week workshop where we can really go there and connect to them. And you see, these are the situations right now, but the flood was worse. All these houses were underwater. And there is no really specific one solution to this living environment, but we're trying to still figure out what can we do in next 2 years. They're reconstructing their planes and houses after the flood. But when we went there, they were saying that every year they have to repair these bases, and if they have to do it everywhere, how can they do other work or develop themselves as community? So that was the complaint they were saying to us. And we immediately decided to stay with the community for 1 week and sit with the people to just, it's not possible to get the solution in 1 week, but at least we got the scope to be friends. And for this community, we found out that there is just one community facility, and that is the madrasa, that is Islamic school, and no school, no hospital, no nothing. And as families, they are very individual. They really don't connect to each other. So we targeted the madrasa, and we tried to work through them for the whole community and develop through a community facility. We saw that all the children come here, so we targeted this place. And we did some experimental works for our own understanding and for some examples as well. So that is a structure that may float, but it's for the madrasa children. They were saying that during the flood, the children really cannot come to the madrasa, so the madrasa teachers, they say, okay, so we consulted this idea of them, that can we make a floating classroom that you can go and you can just connect to some children. So probably it will not work, probably it will work. We don't know yet, but it was just a start. And we made this in 2.5 days. This is super portable, and even if this shade, I don't know if it doesn't work, this platform can be used as transport when there is a emergency. The flood is very disastrous, and people need to shift their belongings immediately. So maybe this platform can come to help sometimes. These were handed over to the children. And again, the workshop, the outcome, the paintings, and everything. So right now we have an agreement with them that sometimes we'll go there and take classes for the children, and sometimes some other teachers will be there with us, so that the children of that village, it's a very remote village, and people generally don't go there, outsiders. So they have some scope on this event, in excuse of this event, to learn something. And it is not that we don't really just build or design beautiful things for fancy. We also tried to understand what is the immediate need, and we found out that many houses were lacking these wash facilities, and we immediately, in parallel, we built these toilets. So it is also important to understand what is their basic need and immediate need. And yeah, so the title of my presentation, Presence for a Wider Spectrum. For us, presence has been a very important method of acting. Without being present there for a period of time, we really cannot understand what is really appropriate for this place. Yeah. we often think of talk about like thinking outside the box. Maybe reality can make the box bigger. Thank you.
Thank you, Rizvi, for the wonderful talk. The images from the design studios are really interesting. Up next, we have Samuel Barclay, the co-founder of Case Design from Mumbai, design and architecture practice committed to exploring design processes through acts of making. After earning the bachelor degree in architecture and civil engineering from Lehigh University, Samuel went on to obtain his MR from Southern California Institute of Architecture, SIAR, in 2004. He moved to India in 2006 to work with Studio Mumbai and later co-founded Case Design in 2013 with his wife Erika Barclay. In addition to his experience in the design and construction of architectural projects, he has worked on furniture, interiors, and exhibitions, and founded the brand Case Builds in 2015. Samuel?
Thank you. I'm a little embarrassed for two reasons. The first was I thought that I only prepared slides. I was told we only have 10 minutes. But, thank you, Rizvi. That's beautiful work. Congratulations. It's certainly inspiring. The other is that I'm about to present work that I actually had very little to no part in. But it is recent work from our studio, and I thought it was a good representation of the way that we think, the way that we practice, and the way that we engage with each other, collaborators, and our clients. While we sort this out, I also want to thank Surya for his generous hospitality and your wife as well. Why didn't I get a puja? No, it's for those of you, not that I'm, the Indian in me has gotten to inviting people to spaces that don't belong to me, but if you've not had a chance to see this home, it's a very, very beautiful space. A number of students have. Yeah. So the project I'm going to show is a recent exhibition that we did just in the last, actually in the first week of August. Most of it happened while I was with my family. I was working in Michigan, but the team put together an exhibition for a jewelry designer in Mumbai. We had, when we were sort of offered the opportunity, we had reservations about jewelry design in general, about consumerism, some of the questions that people addressed in their talks earlier, exhibitions as well, and the sort of temporary nature of exhibitions. And so one of the things we tried very hard to do was to think about the afterlife of the materials that we would use, the way that they would be put out into the world, the sort of cradle to cradle life cycle of these. I hope I've not created a technical problem here. Thank you. So I'll start here. This is, as many of you have heard, I come from a background of strong appreciation, enjoyment of a workshop culture. These are a series of samples that we had made. We were interested in seeing if we could create a product out of lime. And so these are a series of studies using Surkey plaster or Surkey dust rather, which is basically crushed either terracotta or brick, mixed with lime and then compacted to try and achieve a series of forms. We were looking at, for our line of case goods, we were looking at creating a series of oil diffusers. But I wanted to show this as a kind of research development, things of color, texture, pattern, obviously strength, durability, and all of the ultimate failures that you go through before you can arrive at something usable. The trick here. Got it. That led us also, we had the opportunity, we were invited to do an exhibition in Antwerp with some collaborators and friends called DC Architects who practice in Belgium. The open invitation in the gallery was to work with earth in some way. We interpreted that as a series of objects. You can see here we made a stove. All of our interventions, or not interventions, but all of our pieces were around the idea of the production, cooking, and consumption of food. So we had, planters. This was a fermentation pot. We had plates, obviously the stove for cooking, things like that. And so this is kind of how a lot of things grow organically in our practice. One area of interest, one opportunity, invitation leads to another. These are those in more detail. And when we were invited to do this exhibition for jewelry, we thought that the juxtaposition of this very raw, primitive material would be a good opposition to the very refined and careful jewelry that these designers have created. The studio was Studio Ren out of Mumbai, and this was just exhibited a couple of weeks ago. So we started out with the idea of how do you announce the show. The first thing that has to go out is kind of the invitation. And so we worked with them to create basically a series of both cards to announce the invitation, but also a series of planters that could be given out as sort of invitation gifts, party favor, if you will. So these were all made in our studio, designed by our team, in our workshop, primarily led by the product design team. So Barclay, many of you know, Kenan, Sriram, Gaurav, Vishal, but then at a certain point, we couldn't keep the architects away too. So they were very excited to sort of get their hands dirty. We worked out, again, all of the graphic design, all of the technical, practical design. We had just the challenge of when you water a plant, you have to have, obviously, it'll percolate through the earth. So then we had a sort of ceramic base, issues of glaze, how do we wax it, all these very technical things that we're trying to resolve. Again, in a fairly constrained budget and a very constrained timeline, looking at sort of the means of capturing people's attention as well as their imagination to kind of entice them to these spaces. So these are the invitations that came along with it. Again, made in our studio, the idea of mixing earth with binders, we use jaggery, we use other natural ingredients to sort of create these, and then each one, of course, becomes this very unique, individualized invitation. The gallery space itself, we, of course, look at things through the lens of architects and space making. So we worked again with the team. It's a very close collaboration with the team that has designed the jewelry, worked with us to lay out the space, everything from the lighting to the seating to all of these different interventions. And what we created was a series of pedestals, very simple, orthogonal pedestals, and 100% of the material that is disposed of is made from earth. And goes back into the earth. And what we tried to do very hard in the admixture, so it's completely unstabilized. There's no cement, there's no lime. What we tried to do was use binding agents and elements within that admixture that would actually enrich it to a higher state of nutrients, of organic material, so that when it was disposed of at the end, it would leave in a better place. The only elements that are not disposable are these very simple bases, which will be used because this will be a traveling exhibition. So Every time they have to show it, the earth is new earth comes, you get the earth from the new site, but all of the other materials are repurposed and reused. So this is those elements in the space. This is a new exhibition space in Mumbai called the Ice Factory. It's in Palinda State, if anyone knows South Mumbai. And you can see again the means of transport. These very simple bases. These were made in our workshop. They had to be put onto a trans pallet, loaded onto a truck, taken down to South Mumbai and installed. We mixed in elements of, obviously the lighting is very critical. These are all things that were designed and produced in-house. Elements of greenery, the trees, we'll come to in a second, all of the displays for the jewelry. This was a bit of a happy accident. Again, that idea of not being agnostic to the results, but being aware of them and accepting certain things and curating them as you go. So this base actually got made, this base actually got remade twice. It broke in transit, they remade it again at the site, it broke again, they remade it again. And the first two times it broke in a way that was completely not usable. But the third time it broke in a way that was actually quite beautiful. And so this became, if I go back, to come on the later slide, but it kind of became the first piece that you see when you enter the space. It became a focal point for the display. And so accepting that chance. This is Rohit, one of the tech designers. Sorry, Rohan. Creating spaces or moments for people to be able to try the jewelry on. This is a mirror, obviously, but playing a little bit with visual effect and illusion, just to some extent, while also trying to, create an opportunity for people to properly sort of understand what it would be on their person. We also introduced some of the blocks had impregnated within them, had seeds that we knew would sprout. The pots that were delivered already had plants and soil sort of growing out of them, but we loaded some of the bases as well, so that they were pregnant in a way upon arrival. This is that element. So when you come into the main space, this is one of the first things you see. And then two, we obviously had to look at how the jewelry itself would be displayed. Obviously, you can just simply set it on top of the base, but we wanted, again, something a little bit architectural, something a little bit ornamental, but to, at the end of the day, show it in the best light. One of the focuses was to not have the chains in the traditional sense and create a barrier of glass between the viewers, the people experiencing it, and the material. So obviously, they had good security and watchful eyes, but we wanted to have the pieces kind of suspended on these sort of trapezes. We went through a series of explorations to test these out. Again, these are just very simple, small, thin bamboo skewers, inspired by the work of Noguchi and other kinds of visual artists. The sort of, when we're as architects, the confluence of materials and how things come together is obviously something that's really important from a practical and technical point of view. But I wanted to especially show this slide because of just the sheer nature of, when we join wood to stone, or perhaps we need metal in between, or we need things to come together. For me, the idea of how the jewelry rested on this very coarse, very harsh, granular surface of the mud. And what the team worked out was this solution of resting it on a bed of rice. It would take, the rice would absorb any of the moisture that was being taken out of the soil, but it would also create this sort of larger grain, softer grain that would enable the jewelry to sort of rest in this kind of more pillowy bed. And then I wanted to end the sort of the slides coming back to where we started. So we began with the line leading to the earth and the earth leading to this exhibition. Out of those jewelry stands that sort of got our creative juices flowing again. And these are fishing nets very similar to the ones you find in South India and other parts of the country. But this particular set is from Thailand. But the idea, one of the next things, areas of exploration for us is to create a series of lighting elements out of this type of construction, sort of bamboo sticks, hide, fabric, nets, things like that. And so we're constantly looking for sources of inspiration, but also opportunities to practice kind of creative engagement with materials, tectonics, all of those kinds of opportunities. And so for us, it's obviously not a linear process, but there are linkages along the way. So thank you for your.
Thank you, Samuel, for the very intuitive and detailed presentation. And now, finally, we have Palinda Kannagara, who is known for an experiential architecture that hinges on simplicity and connection with the natural environment. Their portfolio spans the breadth of Sri Lanka, from the dry zone to the wetlands to the coast, on a diverse palette of projects, often small in scale. The firm has been the recipient of several prestigious national and international awards in its 16 years of practice, including the RIBA International Award for Excellence in Architecture 2018 and the 5th Perennial Jafurbaba Award. The firm's work has been recognized for its contextual sensitivity, crafted material use, and a minimalism reflective of the Sri Lankan ethos. We welcome you, Palinda.
Good evening, everyone. So I would like to thank inviting you here, and it's honored to be a part of the KBDS program. And today I was thinking of just share a few of my work, and especially I would like to share the process of the how we continue working from the site to the end result. Because for us, the site is very important where the buildings are designed. So I just want to just to do a brief understanding, introduction to where I'm practicing. Sri Lanka, as you know, is island. It's a small country with 5 kilometers of like 64,000. And if you can see the scale of the country and population of 22 million. So it's very compared to India, it's like a city of India. But it has a very big biodiversity, and the topography itself has a different climate condition. And center, you can see like this country and almost like two cities there. So we're trying to absorb because the place is very important in our architecture practice, because we're trying to capture and expressing the magic of the site. We're trying to understand the location. And we have this site for the Sri Lankan context. It's a very sensitive landscape. And again, for our practice, I think the way of living is very important. So because we were trying to understand the people's behavior and the patterns and the way they think and how they want to live in the country. So I think I would like to give a little bit of understanding about the way of living actually shaped by the Buddhism. So Buddhism is like introduced 2,500 years ago. So it has been there with the lifestyle of way of living and the minimalism. So it was like a part of our culture, and then the religion to shape their way of living. So and again, I would like to show few of these, I'm not going to go through a detail of these the monasteries, the temples of these Buddhist temples that is inspired centuries. And it's not directly inspired to our work, but it's, I think, the philosophy, how they just trying to collaborate or be connected with the nature. That is very important to in our practice because the scale of the building, how it relates with the context, and again the dialogue between the sky, the water, and earth. And these are some of the monasteries from 6th century, and these are like journey through the space, the landscape, how these merge with the natural elements, and that is gives you an understanding about how we respect the nature, how we can be a part of the nature rather than we dominate within the nature. So these are some of the beautiful examples, and again the man-made the lake sands, the reservoirs, but still that landscape is almost like a part of the elements, and again some of the elements that is there with the like straight lines with the curvy natural forms that inspired me. And these are monasteries that is like a pathway journey within that natural form, how they respect these animals and the serve stations and meditation pathways. So just to give a glimpse of ancient architecture that reflects the Sri Lankan context and meters. So you can see the landscape is very much primary element in this architecture. And the material that is available there and the time. And again, you can see the very minimal impact and very less detail and just only the purpose I see there. So that is trying to understand. There's no carving, there's no detail as theater. So I'm going to very fast, and again, this is like a CBD monument that is going to have sitting on top of the rock. And you can see that, and again, I see the pathway and the journey is very important. How they're taken from the level landscape in different landscape with a very symmetrical garden, and then going to the rock area and going through some series of rocks and boulders, and end up with the summit. So that is very interesting. And some of the structures that we really thinking of as a material, that's how we can use it, the material like timber. This is like a very beautiful simple pavilion that we can still can be witness this structure from the 15th century. Out of timber, but understanding how the timber can be detached from the ground and it can be a part, like a prevent from the dampness and as well as the prevent attack from the termites. So, and again, this is actually a resting place for the people who are passing by for the villages, and they just use this as a multiple hole. And this pavilion gives the understanding about the dialogue between the landscape and the man-made structure, and how we can celebrate the landscape, how we can enjoy by using these kind of things. And this is actually a beautiful structure. It's a very multi-purpose the pavilion that you can speak here, you can eat here, you can chat, and it's a public gathering space. So from that, I'm trying to start with the few my projects, as I said. So I've been doing this practice from 2005. So it's a long process in a way that I studied 9 years. So, and again, more practical than theory. So we have to work 4 days during my 9 years and 2 days studying. So that's trying to give you understanding about how my background of architecture. It's not a 4 years and then you start working for somewhere in 9 months or something. Because I feel this is another way of looking at how you can learn architecture the long way. And from the beginning to end, you can involve with the project in one firm. So these are some of the projects that I've been doing within these 17 years. And I fortunately work in a different climate zone. You can see some traditional buildings like temples, and again how I can shape that function, and again how to respect the client and the user, and to give them something what they want, and again to maintain the character of my philosophy of the architecture. So we started very small, and some students are here today. They are now architects, so they used to work here. So this is very small office that I had it in from 2005 to 2015. And this is the current office, and with the small office and a studio, we can call it, with the three-story structure. And I used to work and live in the same place. That's my way of practicing. So I just enjoy doing that architecture. So I thought of the student to understand. I want to show you my first project that after immediately graduated, I commissioned to get this project done. It's actually not a bungalow, it's a part of a hydro project. So that is the hydro project that I designed. But this is, I'm not going to detail this today. I'm just sort of to share the bungalow that we designed for the staff accommodation. So this is actually very simple building. When I was just graduated, and again I got commissioned for this higher project, it's more technical project. And then this is more fun. So my client wants to have accommodation because this is away from the Colombo and again in a hill station and again very cold area and a lot of rain in this. So we found a flat area overlooking a valley, but we have been surprised to see the valley when you are entering to the flat area. So that surprise, I want to keep it as the design philosophy or the excitement that I want to give it as the user or a concept. So it's a very simple to have the building along the perimeter of the land. So it's very obvious to just to have a placing buildings in a way that you can get a different angle. So it's not a magic, but the magical thing we started from when you're trying to open out the building, and again the building becomes a barrier to the entrance. So it becomes the forecourt, and then the whole building becomes just like a buffer to the view beyond it. So then I want to have the building as the detachment of this view, and then as you enter through this place, you open out to the valley. So the valley is not noticeable from you coming down from the main road. So that is the surprise. So then we have developed through the site visit. As I said, I never want to stop designing or improving the design. So this was actually after we construct, we realized that we need to have more facilities, and then we extend that with a different material. But then again, that intervention, the extension makes it more connection with the nature. So basically, we want to make it very thin structure or a horizontal building because we don't want to disturb the natural elements or we don't want to stand out from the point of view. And this is the facade that we want to make it more like a plan. And we start always want to design with the model, and we still want to make the models, physical models, three models. And actually, these are some of the construction photos, and that's how it looks from a distance. That you can see the valley just over here, and the building sits and disappears within the landscape. So this is a clear photograph from the road, the main road that you're going down, but still you can't understand what is beyond that point. And this is a driveway towards the building. And then you're slowly trying to go to the entrance port that you drive past in the rubble wall. So these are all material that is available on the site. So we were trying to get the material and trying to relate with the location always as a part of the design process. And again, to enhance the material always be select to support the concept. And that's how you enter from the main door. And you're trying to see the glimpse of the valley and beyond the beauty of these glasses. And then you're trying to connect with the surrounding and the trees, and again trying to merge with the landscape. And that's what we want to do it actually. So, and again, we try to have a dialogue between the outside and inside with that. And again, we are fortunate to use more glass here because of the climate we have, we're able to do that. And you try to go up to the edge and enjoy the booth. And we want to make the building to be very simple and having the palette that is almost like not disturb the eyes and control your light condition and the maintenance free. So that's the process of the project. And that's my first project actually after graduate. So this is my studio that I've designed after 10 years of practice. So 2015 we moved in, but we have done 3 years of this construction. So it's a very urban in a way that facing the marsh. So this was the condition that first we saw. Maybe have seen it's overgrown and next to it like a canal that nobody has noticed as beautiful the water next to it. And but I have realized that it has potential to develop it. But everybody said that it has a water can be flowing into this because Sri Lanka has two monsoons and heavy floods sometimes. So we have to be very careful with the water. And this is the context. And you can see the building here. That's the studio. So it's still more urban area with dense here. And this is the marsh that I was talking about. It's actually preserved area and government property. So we just want to have a simple understanding requirements. So normally, as I said, my practice and the residence always be in one place. So I used to work like that as a small office. So the requirement is just to have a studio and then the residence. So it's very simple. And then the how to address this water issue from this because the experience with the heavy rains, it can be over flooding the ground. So instead of just raising the ground, we just want to lift the building and overcome the situation. So this is very simple answer how to achieve this without disturbing the water. So we allow the water to pass through the building as a parking area and the service area. So that's the concept. And then we have to address the situation, orientation, and again, obvious that we need to open out to the mark. And then the next thing is sun path. So we have the facing the west. So we need to have obviously blind facade or a limited windows towards the side. So building, we were just trying to have it with the blank wall and then we're trying to open out with a few punch holes just to get the breeze through the west wall. So it helps me to design and develop the concept within this guidance. So that's the basic understanding about these the project. And then it starts making the detailing, the planning, and the functions. It comes as naturally. So as I said, the ground floor we left it totally open, so the water can enter from here to go out because we can have to move the vehicles out in a flood situation. So that is natural. It only happened once during these 7 years. So then apart from that, the journey starts from these wide steps to the first floor, and this is the studio level, and this is the bedroom level, and again it's a part of the more like a connection with the ground level with the double height space. So this is going to be like more like a multifunctional space, and then the topmost level is like a pavilion that we want to entertain, and then it's just like more like detachment from the rest of the space. So that's the cross section, more detailed sections, and you can see the volumes of it played. So that's a model that we built a long time back, and that's a real model. So this is I'm talking about the framing the views and again controlling the light from the side. This is the best. So we have openings here, and again the filter light. We're trying to take it through the building, through the spaces, and we most use the reclaimed material. These are reclaimed material from the estates that they removed and want to make a tar road. So we have fortunate to collect all that thing. Even the wood that we want to use is more like a reclaimed wood from a different structure. So it's just connected with the different materials. And I would like to have it in a different color palette even. So that's how you see the steps coming from the lower level to the upper level. And you can see the material that I want to play with that. So it's actually from the rough stone. These are also from the Colombo road tables that they used to have it in colonial times. So they removed everything and they want to have a proper tar road. So that we just reuse that. And as I said, then gradually you climb up to the first floor level and then the material change to change the mood and then different volumes that we want to have it. So we just come to a very much like filtering from that previous spot that is a lower high and then open out to the bigger volume and it has a connection again with the marsh. That's a dialogue I want to have it from this. So these are going to be like a visitor, like a client speaking, so they change their mind. So when they stop here, they want to do focus with the work. So I just want to change their mindset as they come up and then they gradually enter to the office here. So basically the office will be very simple and again 8 computers. I have always that 8 staff, that's my maximum. So I'm trying to work in that area. So this is the next level. But again, I have the connection to the mask, which through the double height space and the dialogue between the staff and upper level. It always helps me to stay up and connected with the staff. So as I pointed out, you can see the evening sun as the shadows on the floor and created a dramatic, light and shadow play. And again, as you can see, these are some of the vertical lures. I wanted to control the weather because you can't keep it open in a rain season. So even though you can't see any window here, it has a glass that you can control. So basically, the horizontal lures that I wanted to make it like a vertical. I've taken the challenge to do it because everybody said, no, you can't have that tall glass. I said, okay, that's my office. I can try and it works. It's there. Okay. So that's, and again, the concrete, that is all exposed concrete as structural thing. But it's more like I want to get a bigger fan with the column. But most of the walls are very thin. It's actually 4-inch thick. And apart from the columns in between like 10 feet or a different interval. But I want to have a envelope or a thermal condition and we strap with a brick from outside. From outside, it looks like a brick building. From inside, it's a structure exposed with the concrete. And in between the two walls, I have a thermal condition with insulation like 4 inches of air gap. So that allows me to take all my services through that. So there you can't see any down pipes or air conditioning pipes or anything. So it helps me to understand how the material can be used in a like country-like situation that like a temperature having like 28, 30 degrees. But it's very cooler when you have that envelope outside the concrete. So I'm going through that some series of photographs at bedroom and again framing. So some of the elements, the staircase going leading again to the rooftop level. So when it comes to the rooftop, it's totally isolated from the rest. It's almost like a visitor's area. So evening, I always spend most of the time here. And again, the landscape, we want to make it more like connecting with the surrounding landscape. So there's almost like connection and Varna did this landscape and all of the project. And we are also a recent photograph. So the landscape has taken over. It's almost like left it alone and we are not maintaining it. So it's a natural form of landscape. So basically, the next project is actually, I'm trying to show it in a different condition. Because I just want to give you an idea about the cost of the project. Also, we have a very big concern in Sri Lanka. So economic crisis, and again, before that, even people have very limited budget. And this is for our artists, and we have to deal with their lifestyle as actually this end result is the result of my clients as artists because they are willing to understand the architecture and accept the ideas that I was telling. I just want to make a building very low cost, and this is my artist, my client's painting. So we just trying to have the understanding about the topography, and the site is actually facing the paddy field. So and again surrounded with a lot of urban the houses. So this is actually the condition initial. There was nothing inside. It's a sloping site and facing the paddy, and we want to control the environment within the site. So what we want to create is like create a pavilion within the site and with the connection of series of gardens. So at the end of the day, I would like to say it's like almost like a garden pavilion. So that was the concept. So we left the whole ground floor open and secured the upper level just to have the private spaces for the family and left the gallery and then the studio at this level and make use of the topography without cutting and filling it. So that's the concept. So we carried away with that idea of detailing it. And then these are some of the construction photos. And this is from the paddy field, how the building merged with that. So as we're going towards the building, it's trying to open out to the series of openings to the landscape inside. And the material, we're trying to make it unplastered and almost like the part of the natural. And again, the nature trying to take over the building. And even the landscape is going almost like part of the surrounding landscape. So there's very significant difference with the landscape. And you can see the series of gardens, how the rear garden connects to this garden. And there are some steps here, but visual links with the different functions. It helps me to have a more open building rather than controlling in the different space and defined spaces. And this is the from the living area that we're overlooking the dining, and you can see this is like some of the steps that we want to introduce as a connection to the two spaces and again spillover spaces from the living to the dining. So basically, by using the topography, we managed to create a huge volume here for the artists to have a big commission that helps them to work in a taller painting and a different volume space. And upper level, we want to create a different cluster that it has to change their mood from their work studio and to their living space, and it's more secure room uh, and overlooking again the landscape. So actually, as we say that we were trying to work with any material that is available. So this is the help of my client, so he created this pattern. But I just want to specify whatever is available, we're trying to fix it in a pattern that is going to be our art. So we maintained our cost to minimize below his budget even. So this is another project. We finished it recently, 2019-20, and this is a really in this area. This is like Anuradhapura, all the ruins, and more connected with the CPD area. That is in Haparana. So we're trying to get the inspiration from that, and again, material from the regional material that is can be connected with the location. So we were trying to explore with that, and this is the site, and this is the layout, and you can see there's a tank above that the land, but you can't see hardly you can see from here because there's a level difference between the tank and the land about 20 feet. So we were trying to focus with the landscape that is already there, and again there's a water canal next to it. So we have to understand that we need to be raised the whole ground to overcome this situation of floods again. So what we have done is this is the initial photograph of the site, and then these are some of the models that we created, and the journey between this from the start to the end is taken shaped by these trees and all the existing elements. We were trying to get through this journey as a meditation pathway along that thing, time, and then all the functions separate from that area. So access from here to different the villas and individual villas and the reception here. So it's all we only break the building rather than replacing the land. So to overcome that. So as I said, this is the section and there's a tank over here. This is the main entrance. So you can see the context. So we were trying to have the building almost like a merge with the landscape and the trees around it. And this is the from the land, from the main entrance. This is, and again, this is a Sigiri, the Sigiri rock beyond that point. Um, and even with some of the buildings shaped with these trees, and again, we have to save a lot of trees, and we have taken the design as a inspiration or the shape of the available space to design it. And that journey starts with the crossing the canal, and then you can see the walkway continues, and we allow the water to pass through that field area, and that's the journey. So end of the day, it becomes of almost like a ruins, and again, it gives the character to the space. as a like a filling area. Pathway. And again, it's a totally like open pavilion to have a cross ventilation, so minimize the windows. Um, and again, the restaurant with the biggies, and again, we have extended to control the water getting to the restaurant. So you can understand in the monsoon rain can be beaten. So we were trying to safeguard the interior by having a overhanging above that area. So with that, I'm going to show the final project. So this is more like an experimental project for me. We have worked with this client before, and again, they had this property. It was abandoned for years, like generation. It was in a wall. You can see the Colombo, and again, you have to drive there. So that's where they have grown up in this village. That my client, and again, he want to connect his daughter with the village. So he was just want to build something in this beautiful sensitive landscape. So this was the condition of the landscape, but it was actually surrounded by the creek. And you can see this is the water around that property, and it's again filling in a rainy season, and it has recorded over 4 feet. So then the structure has to be very strong, and again has to be lift above the ground. It is very costly to have a concrete structure in this marsh. So we were thinking of how we can achieve this, lifting the building in a very light way, and again not impact to the surrounding and the landscape. So because it's so sensitive, I want to make the building to be more like a distant and not a permanent building. So we were trying to think of a different element. We found that the scaffolding gives the right answer to achieve that thing. And again, it's a very, you can remove it, you can have it in another place. So we just use this as a deck, and then we just use it as a module to have a structure. We just use that as to have a roof over that. So basically, it's a three pavilions, and facing the north south. So then again, we try to control the views and by having a twist a little bit. So it's like a simple design with the 2 bedroom, and only solid part we want to have it with for the washrooms only, and the rest is almost like a pavilion. So that is how it looks, and then we'll have the end result with something like that, and you can see how the flood affects the entire landscape, but still the building can enjoy the water, and how we can be a part of that without having a solid building there. So even the material that we want to use is like all this construction material that we use for the scaffolding, the platforms, and structure still can stay with the water, and then we continue going into that, and again having this height, it's not disturb the movement through the building, and it helps to continue the cattle and all the animals who are there, that birds even they can walk like through that space. So that helps to not disturb the lifestyle of that site. And we use a very light material. These are all panels that we use with the timber frame, and it helps to make it safe way to be more reduced, and more veranda space, like a veranda living rather than a inner space. And all glasses can be opened out with the louvers. And yeah, that's basically the materials and the elements to cut down the cost. And that's my client and with the daughter enjoying the weekend there. So I have a small video. If you have time, we can share that presentation. Thank you very much.
you
but it's also incredibly useful as a means of not just production, but engagement.
We'll now take questions from the audience. Questions?
Hi. So through iteration, you hope to have design concepts evolve and solidify after every iteration, ideally. But how often does a design completely pivot based on your investigations and you end up taking a step back or completely rethinking the design concept and how to address a certain client's needs?
Always the process has to continue. So for us, actually, it's a journey, and if the journey is not right, or you have to understand whether you are doing the right thing or you're doing the right path. So then I always saying that we are the one who enjoys best before showing to the client. But I believe if I can't enjoy my spaces, I'm excited about the project, I'm not going to present it. I take more time, more extension, but I take my time. It's the value rather than just submitting something that is not believing, right? It's not support your, inner spirit. It's because you are the first judge for me. I feel I always like to enjoy, what I'm doing, and that excites me to say, oh wow, I have design, I have something. Then I want to pause, and sometimes before the meeting, does it come? I just want to go because I'm not believing presentation in the number of drawing or whatever. Even one sketch, I'm excited, then I can pause it. So it's a process. So it has to understand whether you are going the right direction. Sometimes even after working drawings, I have to reverse, you know. So that flexibility I always want to get from the client, nothing else I need from the client. So I'm always have a dialogue saying, okay, give me some time. So maybe we go. Sometimes with the budget you have to do. Even after because in Sri Lanka, it's very hard to work with the big concept or with the big period. So when you have that thing in the, after even the tender documents, after evaluation, the estimate, they say, no, you can't do it. Even they have to reverse it. So there are a lot of reversing as we done. And again, it takes some time. So I think we as architects who are practicing in the limited budget, so we have to work with the different elements, sometimes change the materials, change in the tunes, and even for an example that the design that I've done for the Habaran project of Kupe, that is not the original design that I've done. It's totally different. So we have to rethink and go to site and change it. Even the frame, the last project, the twist happened on the site. So the plan was just like a linear building, but then again I realized there are different views on the site when I'm being setting out towards the brigade. So then I said, okay, turn this way. And then again, obvious that west facade has been turned towards the sea. So likewise, it has a lot more flexibility. So I rather believing that has to be continue with the journey, and then the end result will be the north side.
Hello, I'm Vipasha. So all three of you deal with materiality and different materials in your projects, and you keep exploring with different materials over the time. It's coming from a personal reflection that as a student, many a times what material am I going to build with comes at the very last in our design process. So my question is that when does materiality come to in your design process, and how does the choice of material kind of influence even your concept and your process, or how do you take the project?
Yeah, I think I just try to explain. The concept is very, it's the idea that we want to continue, and the material itself comes immediately with the concept or idea how we want to design, not the form, but the element or the, for example, the frame. So we were just trying to understand building the material that can be lifted up out of the ground, and the material came as a result of the concept, but not the after design we want to find a material. No, because it's something times it happened like that. So we have tried to understand. No, the columns have to be like pile. Then it's very costly. So then what we can do very light. Then we found it, the material. Okay. We got a nice contractor who can do that in fast. We have done it in 3 months. And the material is actually the first result of the concept. And then it became the design tool. And then it became the proportion of the room even. So everything is guided by the material. It's not that material can last. So I can't tell exactly whether the material comes first or the concept or the design. Sometimes it happens with the design. Sometimes it comes with the as a result of the to support the design. So for example, the Habrana project, the brick. So because the regional material that is used in the ruins and it is part of the surrounding context. So I want to respond to that. I can't immediately just use it as a copy of the replica or something. But in the journey, that experience from that region, that is carried away with the idea about how to save the trees and the journey and overcome the situation of the flood again, 2 feet and 2.5 feet lift. And then they say the trees that we have taken the path and winding. So then everything is as a result of understanding the topography, the context, and then the idea, region, everything there as a final result. So you can't just say that whether we have decided to have a brick because of that is a regional. So it's basically it's all together, part and factor, everything.
So yes, like every material has their different characteristics, and you have to treat them right to make the product successful. So when you understand a material, you will compose it in the right way. Like you cannot just build a space and decide later, okay, should this be bamboo or should this be concrete or not? It will not work. So you have to understand the character of the material first, and then you can compose it right. Does it need extended shade to be protected? Like in our projects, the bamboo needs to be protected from the rain. That is the first thing we ensure that it has to be protected from the rain. Otherwise, in 2 to 3 years, it has to be like a massive maintenance, and that will be a huge burden. So materiality, when you think of it, we try to start with understanding what is available there and how we can compose it in a very simpler and nice way.
I'm not going to say anything too different from that. Yeah, it's contextual. It's an understanding of span and tectonics, and again, it feeds back into you might be given a site, and that site, we were working on a site in Goa, and obviously you had to do some excavation. So out of that excavation came laterite. So it's just like banging you on the head, like, yeah, that should be incorporated into the project in some way. Just those kinds of conditions exist where there's just a natural kind of flow and progression, and then you design from there. So okay, that one piece of the puzzle in place, and now how do I respond to that?
Thank you for answering the questions. I have one last question for you all. Because all of you have been working for quite some time now, and it's very important for experience would be a right word. So we want to learn from you, which is why I'm asking that how does how does one become more aware of your own design thinking or philosophy during your time? Like once you take up a lot of projects right after graduating, it becomes very important for one to look back at what they've done. And I would want to know from all of you about what methods you take to reflect upon your own practice, and how do you learn from your own work.
Maybe I'll start. One is, I think, participating in events like this. I can't speak for anyone else, but I've certainly reflected on my predilections, my process, my techniques, those of our studio in the conversations and dialogues today, both formally but also in conversations in the dining hall last night and under the tree over there this afternoon. So I think that's one thing. The other thing for me that's been instrumental is until I got to grad school, half of the architecture studios I took were abroad. So I studied in Florence, I studied in Copenhagen, and for me, putting myself in a context of not so much discomfort, but unfamiliarity, if I can put it that way. The idea of traveling, which is actually, I'm finally building something very small, but building in the US and understanding the practice of designing and building there in that context is hugely informed, even though it's vastly different in every way imaginable. Understanding it through the lens of practicing here, practicing in Los Angeles, living in Europe for brief periods of time. And so for me, that idea of living and working and traveling to other places has been personally instrumental.
I think, as I said, I have learned it in a long way because I have studied 9 years. It's not bragging. It's like you had to work with the architect throughout that year. So I think that is a learning process for me. So that's the advice I feel when telling students just to try to work in a firm for a longer period that you can involve with the start to the end, because you need to understand how the architect involved with the first initial sketch to the final outcome. Because otherwise, without working in a 6 months or a 1 year, is not enough to understand the process. Because that helps you to understand the philosophy or the organizing thing. And again, more than a creative part, you have to understand how you can work with the client, contractors. There are a lot more to things to understand in architecture, because the creative part is comes from within you. So you have to develop by seeing things and visiting places to understand what you need something by yourself. I'm always in believing. I'm still learning. I just went through this building yesterday night and enjoy the sections again. This is the third time I visited here. I I always want to see something new. And again, with your experience, you come to see that thing with a different way. And you try to minimize. I've always telling, even I was telling the students in the morning, um, that architecture education gives you a foundation to understand architecture. That open out to understand more things that you have to learn, because the learning process is within you. You have a never-ending time to understand and learn architecture. We are learning process that you can stop. And every day you learn, and every day you think at as an architect is a different perspective. You develop yourself. So that you have to grow it as a thing. And again, for me, I think I have started long way actually learn architecture. That's a part of my life. And again, it is actually more mature to see things as architect. So that is helped me to understand. So I think I'm not old, but learn architecture with a way that. But I think yes, trying to be open, trying to respect other architects, because we are learning from the others. We always want to see other people's work. Why we just doing it? We have to be open. And again, all kind of any kind of architecture. I really enjoy all the architect works. There's no anything that I don't like, because even I can learn, or then I can think of how I can improve that architecture. Even that is my process of thinking. I'm always seeing something and I'm convert to my understanding of how we can improve it. What is the mistake? Why it's not beautiful? Why it's not perfect? Why it's beautiful that I can't understand? What I can't, why I can't do it? Then it's a challenge. So always students go through the buildings, understand issues, and again when you're going in a train or a bus, you see things. You be open, and again you see a lot of things to understand, because that is the process. So the academic level is fine. So that is a foundation that you have a PhD to by yourself to continue. So I have not been doing this.
I haven't practiced that long. So I'm, I'll agree to Mr. Palinda that the learning process is never ending. And I learned so many things from the presentations today, from the students and from the self. And so, yeah, and there is always scope to look for new perspective, always scope to be better in another layer. So I think that that also keeps the excitement going on. Like if you have stuff, if you think that okay, you know everything, you will not be excited anymore. So yes.
Thank you for your response to this question, and I'm sure that it has been very useful for all the people present here, not only the students, because these were much needed words that we should hear more often to keep the excitement going. Now we should all head to dinner, but I'll just give the mic to Vipasha to just share the schedule for tomorrow. Thank you all for joining us today. We'll move to the basement for dinner. This today's day was quite long, but we have tomorrow as well, the last session. It's at 9:30, so we will meet here again tomorrow morning.